Hello and welcome to the Jeep Life Podcast. I am T-Bone and I'm happy to be here with you on this 460,000th day of COVID-19 quarantine.
At least.
And I'm joined here by both of our co-hosts. It's pretty awesome. I've got one sitting exactly 6 feet away from me. Don, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I feel like I've seen you before today.
Yeah, but we couldn't have because there's a quarantine.
That's right. We just made it up.
Yeah, right.
and on the line, you guys don't get to see him on Facebook Live, but you get to hear him, and that's really all that matters. This is a podcast overall, and I got my friend Bill. Bill, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Terry. How are you doing today?
Man, I'm surviving.
Yeah, it's a shame we can't get him on Facebook Live because, out of the whole Jeep group, he's the best looking one of us.
Oh, he's by far. I literally, we should do the opposite of what we're doing now. We shouldn't be on there.
Right.
Bill should just be on there.
Agreed.
Yeah. Wow. Maybe we stuff a 10 spot in his pants. He'll take off his shirt.
How about it?
That'll definitely attract our
20 spot guy. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not.
He's worth. Yeah, I'll take $1 bill.
You're lucky I went for the 10 spot. So it's good to have everybody here, and thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. I know that in the last week or so, we've really we've gotten some more traction, and it's been pretty nice to see people joining us and becoming lifers and really getting to share that Jeep life, if you will. Now, the three of us, we're all in the same Jeep club, and I know that we've talked to other Jeep clubs, and we'll get more into what they're doing, but we've done some really awesome stuff. And again, today, we went out and supported 3 nursing homes in the area where we did Jeep parades, and we were escorted by the area's finest for each one of those locations, and the police really came out and helped us out, sirens blaring. I think close to 85, 90 different Jeeps at times. It was pretty awesome to see, wasn't it?
It was incredible. And again, it's emotional. It was emotional first time we did it. What, a week and a half ago?
Yeah.
That was emotional, and it was today. It's cool to see everybody come together.
It really is.
Support the frontline workers, and like today the people that were in the home. It's they're a lot of them are quarantined to their rooms right now.
Yeah.
So they can
Yeah, it was great to see them in the windows and waving.
Yes, it was. That was really cool. We were looking for them,
Yeah, and I got to hear Bill's horn.
Well, we were a little worried about that.
That horn will never die, Terry. You know that.
You'll be surprised. One night you come in, it'll just the hose will be cut. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Hey.
So Bill, this is your first outing with us because you're normally working from home and not able to get out and attend. Is that right?
Yes. So actually, I am considered somehow, I don't know how, an essential employee of my company. So as some of you know, I work for Dorman Products. It's an aftermarket car part manufacturer. And, people still need to fix their cars. AutoZone's still open. Advanced Auto's still open. Napa, O'Reilly. All those major auto part dealers are still open in their brick and mortar form and also online.
Right.
So, we still have to design these parts that are the newest and latest parts that people are going to be needing to fix their vehicles. And on top of that, we still need to basically have our warehouse open to send these parts out to these brick and mortar locations. So as an engineer, I'm more on the behind the scenes side of, making sure these parts are up to date, making sure that they work properly, this, that, and the other thing. So it's been a huge obstacle to kind of overcome, but at the same time, it's taught me a lot. It's taught all of my fellow, my peers and stuff like that about, just trying to overcome the situations that we've been handed. And let me tell you, this situation is an interesting one, as we all know.
Every day it gets more and more interesting.
It's bizarre.
So I think at one location we had 42 Jeeps, another location, and people came and went as they could, and stayed. Another location, we were a little bit bigger than that, 43, 44, plus the police car. So it was really cool to see that.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Go by. And
plus, it was just good to get everybody together. I mean, just to get out and
even if it's just staying inside your Jeep.
Absolutely. And you know what? Today was kind of a fun day just to sit in the Jeep. It was pouring, raining. It
ugly.
felt more like November rain than it did, April. So it was
definitely.
kind of cool just to sit in the Jeep with the heat on and next to a couple other Jeeps and hang out.
Yeah, I saw Robert. He was his Jeep was getting cleaned by being out in the rain.
Wasn't it,
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
Every time he'd leave a parking spot, there was like a ring of mud.
I don't know if he's ever washed that thing. He's so proud of all the mud on there.
It's a badge of honor.
I love it.
So I did roll my window down, keeping more than 6 feet away from Robert.
Right.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, have you ever washed that since you bought it? And he said, no, I have not. So just to confirm with you guys, he has not washed his Jeep since he's bought it. And he is a Team Red,
He is Team Red.
Team Redder.
Hashtag Team Red.
Yeah.
But so it was a good day, and I'm really proud of the work that we're doing as a club, and I know that other Jeep clubs across the country have done the same thing, whether it's being a drive-by birthday wish for
See, that we did what there looks like. I think there was one.
Yeah, there was
two.
There was at least one, for one for a girl and one for a woman that was turned 105. Yeah, wow. But it's what it's all about, being a part of the Jeep life and the Jeep community. Yeah. And I know other clubs have done the same thing. I've watched it on Facebook and the social medias. I don't want to sound sappy, but it warms my heart,
It does. And that's what drew Amy and I to this club, is that it's more than, taking these Jeeps on the trail and tearing them up and rebuilding them. There's got to be more to it than that, and that's what this club is all about.
Yeah. So if you see me on Facebook Live looking down, my eyesight is so bad. I have to keep the running tab of the comments and everything going. So if we can comment on that, we will. So I'll just keep looking down every once in a while, looking at that. Remind me to edit this out on the regular podcast. This is normally we would normally go into some other topic, but I think it's time to start moving topics around a little bit, see what works. But we usually have a Jeep of the week, and this week I challenged Bill to find me a Jeep of the week, one that isn't the normal, ordinary, run of the mill Jeep, and I think he's done that for us.
Billy, drop the mic.
Thud. So there we go. So I have a good buddy. We were lifeguards together way back when I was down the shore in Wawa, New Jersey. We were lifeguards together, and we still keep in touch. And about probably 6 to 8 months ago, he called me one day and he was like, "Yo, man, I'm buying a Jeep." I was like, "All right." So he said, I was like, "What are you getting?" He was like, "I'm getting a CJ2A." I was like, "A what?" Yeah. So got a little bit more information over time, and he sent me pictures, this, that, and the other thing. And don't worry, everybody, I will be posting these photos up to Instagram as soon as possible. But it's a 1948 Willys CJ2A Lefty.
Wow.
So it's very interesting to hear him talk about it and trying to look everything up about it. And basically what it means is that it's a CJ2A, which is it's 7 years older than the original Jeep. So it's all original numbers, and the original color was actually emerald green. And it's a second owner Jeep, so he's the second owner on this Jeep. It was originally from North Carolina, and the lefty part means that the tire is on the left side, and normally it's on the right side. And he was trying to explain this whole thing of how back then the tire would actually block the turn signal. So you'd actually have to physically signal that you're turning a certain direction.
Oh, interesting.
So it's really cool. It's all original. currently it's actually this, kind of orangey color. However, he is going to restore it to Luzon red, which is a original Willys color of 1948 that these Jeeps came in. It does, he's working on basically restoring it back to its original form. All the numbers are correct. So currently he has 31-inch Firestone, like an all-terrain tire on it. It does have the 60 horsepower Go Devil motor, which is this, really cool old motor. I didn't get too much about it.
Well, they use those in all sorts of things, like tractors and other, because Willys, they did other things rather than just a Jeep.
Right.
They really helped design, and they weren't the biggest manufacturing company, which is why they're not the actual final Jeep product, but they're the reason Jeep exists.
Right.
But yeah, they did so many other things, and that Go Devil was part of that that tractor lineup and other trucks, just multi-duty engine for the time.
Absolutely. And some of the other cool parts about this Jeep is that it's actually has the turret mount. So in the tub. So it was made
just
to
in
have
case
a machine gun mounted to the center of that Jeep.
Just in case.
Just in case you needed it. And also it only tops out at 45 miles an hour.
Yeah. Well, it's only got 60 horses under that hood.
Yeah, but I mean, he did say that there is they do make an overdrive attachment that can go on the back of the transfer case that will make it go 70 miles an hour to drive it down the highway. But he said also that really depreciates the value of the vehicle, and it really takes a toll on the motor itself.
Right.
So, and to top it off, he has crocodile leather.
You're going to have to repeat that one more time.
And to top, he has crocodile leather seats.
Crocodile leather seats. I don't think that was. I don't think that was stock. Yeah.
That was not.
We think that option code read.
Because he added these because it's a Florida vehicle. It's in Florida, and it just kind of goes along with the whole Florida vibe. Of,
it does.
Kind of thing. So this thing is wicked awesome, and I sent you guys photos, and so you've seen it. And he is one of two, which we might feature his other Jeep in the future. So we're gonna keep that one a secret.
All right, we'll keep that one a secret. All right.
Yeah.
You were breaking up through some of that, so we may stop at some point and redial you in.
Okay.
But right now you seem to be good, so we'll leave it as it is.
All right.
But we missed the crocodile seats from you, but I think we'll be okay with that.
Okay.
All right. Now I have
also,
you.
As I said, I'm recording it too, so that.
Oh, right. That does help. You're right. But the Facebook live listeners got a nice dose of.
That's that Pocono sound.
You got that Pocono internet going on up there.
Yeah, tell me about it.
That's such a cool Jeep. I pulled it up, and I like the fact that he's talking about going back and doing a lot of the original stuff.
It's tough to cut those up. There's not many left, and amongst that early flat fender crowd, you cut one of them up, you're in for a lynch mob.
They won't be happy.
Yeah.
No.
All right, Don, how you doing?
I'm good. There? Yeah, I'm okay.
You okay?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right. I don't want to leave you out because I'm going to crack open another cold one. See if we heard that online.
I heard it.
I heard it.
Excellent. I like it. I want to give a shout out to the Planet of the Jeeps. I think they're up in Canada.
I've been watching her posts lately.
Yeah. Seem like a good bunch of guys, and I know the guy who has put that together has been a huge fan and help for us. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. They get some interesting posts. Seems like a good group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. So we've got people joining us from all over the country and internationally.
Oh yeah, who's
It-
that?
Wow.
Right? The Planet
So-
of the Jeeps.
Clue.
Steve is from Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're not talking intercontinental.
Hey,
Ah,
let's
Play on words, Terry.
words matter, but it's international. It's not stuck
That's
here
true.
in
That's true.
the States,
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see all the people from all over the country that have joined us. I know last week we had California, Washington State represented. I think we got some Michigan stuff going on right now.
No kidding.
Canada. So it's great to have all them on board with us.
That's cool.
Yeah, we're
different world over there wheeling.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Oh yeah, you've wheeled out there.
Yeah,
I have.
I got to spend quite a bit of time in California and Arizona, Utah. So, and I think this year I'm going to try to find my way to Utah.
You know what? I might have to join you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
All right, let's go.
So podcast on the road.
we're going on the road.
I'm there.
Everything we have here can go with us. I mean, there's
absolutely.
nothing here that ties us.
I think it would be perfect if we were sitting in the middle of the woods, a state national park, at a park bench.
Yeah.
Doing some live Facebook.
Yeah, I see this happening. Yeah. Sponsors.
Cool.
They'll pay for it. We'll get them.
Now you're talking.
Now we're talking.
Now you're talking.
Because I'll mention them all over the place.
Yeah, how about it?
I'll tell everybody about it. So we're now heading into our main topic, and this is something that we've wanted to do for a while. It's been on the board since the very beginning of putting all this together. I am not the expert. We have the expert sitting right beside me, and I know Bill has some experience with this, that he's going to chime in. Now, I'm probably going to provide a little bit of color sprinkled in with this, but our topic today is gearing. And what does gearing mean? Should you do it? Should you not do it? And what if you don't do it? What's going to happen?
Perfect.
Is that a good?
That's a great intro. Absolutely. And this is one of my areas that I teach this class. I teach a driveline class, and one of the things that we do in a driveline class is we hit differentials, axle assemblies. We do a home run on that. I did a lot of it in the dealership, but I just think this is such a cool area because it really can change the whole attitude of how your Jeep drives. But anyway, let me jump in. So first of all,
hold on, Don.
Yeah, go for it.
One thing I want to put out there before you go into this, I want everybody to know gearing and patience go in the same sentence.
Yes, we're going to talk about that.
The time.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you don't have the patience, and if you don't want to take the time to really do your research, learn about this, and when you're doing it, to really sit back and dial it in, don't even think about it.
And I think this is why I like rears so much. It's not something, and I'm going to be completely honest, if you don't have a lot of mechanical ability, and you're right, Billy, if you don't have a lot of time on your hands, because without all the right tools, from Dana or the Jeep dealer, there is a lot of trial and error, but do not attempt this. And then at some point, I really do want to, as I regear my new Jeep, I do want to do a driveway mechanic video of how to do it without all the tools. I know, Billy, you did it, and we're very successful with it. But there is a lot of, even though there's not a lot of parts, there's a lot of science behind rear differentials. And I think that's one of the things that I dig. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to get into it real deep because we could easily waste 2 or 3 hours tonight, in the science of a differential. But I think, first of all, you got to understand the purpose of that thing.
Yeah.
So first of all, first and foremost, it's got to convert rotational motion 90 degrees. So your dry shaft is spinning one direction, and we've got to convert that motion, that rotational motion to 90 degrees to drive the tires. Otherwise, you're not going anywhere.
Right.
So
it's not like a boat motor.
No, definitely
right? It's not a corkscrew.
Right. No. There's no propeller in the back of that to get you going. So we do that through the ring and pinion. The ring and pinion converts it to 90 degrees. It also allows one tire to track differently than the other in most cases. Now, if you've got a locked rear that can't be unlocked, we'll get into lockers and carrier assemblies later, but when you're going around a corner, and you have those two arches from the tires, you're let's say you're making a right-hand turn, your inside right tire travels less distance than the outside.
It's going to be smaller. Right.
Right. Absolutely. That arch is smaller. So the outside tire has to travel at a greater speed, and the side gear assembly in the inside of the carrier is what allows that to happen. And then the last part of it, and the part we probably most commonly think about when we think about, what a gear, what gears do, or the rear axle assembly or front axle assemblies, it's torque multiplication. Okay. And so now this is something to think about. And I just use, round numbers just for easy math, but a new 3.6 liter Pentastar engine does just shy of 300 foot-pounds torque. I think it's 269, Billy. Is that what it is?
Yeah, something around there.
So, we'll use 300 foot-pounds just for a square number, but even though that number sounds big, it's really not. We have impact guns that do 700-800, half-inch impact guns that do 700-800 foot-pounds of torque.
Right.
We have bolts that we commonly, your lug nuts on your Jeep are torqued to about 120 foot-pounds of torque.
Yep.
So 300 foot-pounds of torque is not that much to move a 5,000-pound vehicle.
Right.
To boot, we don't have that 300 foot-pounds available right off idle. It happens later in the RPM curve. So we use torque multiplication. It's what the transmission's main purpose is. It's torque multiplier. So let me give you this. If your first gear ratio, and the ratio means how many times that engine turns to how many times the actual, output shaft turns, if your first gear ratio is 3-to-1, and then you've got a 2-speed transfer case, which all Jeep Wrangler owners have. You've got your 4 high and your 4 low. And if your 4 low is a 2-to-1, okay, and your rear differential is a 4-to-1, which is close to, 410 gear ratio, which is what they use in the Rubicons. You go from, the math on that is 300 times your first gear, 3-to-1 is 900 foot-pounds. And then you multiply that by 2 for your transfer case, low gear.
Yeah.
So we're at 1,800, and then times your 4-to-1 rear gear ratio, you're at 7,200 foot-pounds of torque. That's where you get the torque to crawl over rocks and boulders and things like that at idle.
Well,
and that's what the Jeep. That's the Jeep. Of course, my notes just logged off. That's what they're known for. They're geared low. So,
right.
And tonight when we refer to gears, that's what we're going to talk about. So ultimately, it's a torque multiplier, and torque is the available amount of work, and then horsepower is the basically how fast can you get that work done.
Right.
Okay? But the more important thing in cars, and we always look at horsepower, but it really is, what's important is the torque, and especially in an SUV, truck, something like that. So inside that rear axle assembly, it consists of a pinion gear and a ring gear. There's a carrier that holds the ring gear. Your pinion gear sits in the front of the axle. That's what there's a yoke that attaches to the pinion. Pinion has splines on it. Yoke is splined. They slide together. There's a bolt in there or nut that cinches these down and actually sets preload on your bearings. And then that's attached to your dry shaft. So your dry shaft is directly turning your pinion.
Right.
Your ring gear sits 90 degrees from that, 90 degrees off from that, and is attached to a carrier. Your carrier holds your side gears, which is what lets us turn the wheels at different speeds. And then your side gears are basically attached via splines to the axles that go out to your tires.
Right.
So Don,
Yeah.
another name for
Spider
side
gears.
Spider gears.
Yep.
So.
Bearings, your all differentials will use tapered bearing. Not all, but about 90%. There's a few odd hybrids out there. Toyota's got I believe has a rear pinion because they use like a third member that does not have a tapered. But we use tapered bearings because they're preload sensitive, and it just makes sense. They're stronger than a regular gear, and we have a lot of force pushing, trying to push those two gears away.
Right. So there's a lot of stuff going on to make that happen. I mean, when it boils down to it, it's super simple. It's teeth in a gear that meets teeth in another gear.
Yep.
And one turns the other.
Yeah, but there's a ton of science behind how to get that to work right and last.
Right, and last. That's the kicker, because then you're multiplying that torque.
Right.
And you get cheap stuff in there, the teeth will just fall right off, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, or even more so than cheap stuff, I would say is, differentials that aren't set up correctly.
Right.
And like I said, I'm gonna attempt at some point before the summer's over. We were joking. What did we say? I'm the guy on the team that doesn't get anything done. I've been trying to cut a video for Power Tank, but I'm going to try and get a video done on when I regear mine in my driveway, in my garage, prior to the end of summer, I hope. But there's a lot of science that goes into that to make sure those bearings stay together, to make sure that you're not braking when you have those gears under load. You're not braking gears.
Right.
There's noises that can happen if pinion depth is off. So there's something called backlash that you have to be aware of, and we'll get into that later.
I've had whiplash.
It's totally different, but yeah.
So, another interesting thing is to make sure that those gears sound proper too.
Right, and that comes into play. A lot of that has to do with pinion depth and where the pinion gear rides on that ring gear. That's a big part of it. You'll get whining from it. If you're in too far, if you're out too far, you're gonna have issues, and so. And we do all that through contact patterns. It's kind of like. I don't know. It's kind of like when these guys that are avid fishermen come out and they're reading the waters and they know where the fish are going to be and what time they're feeding. By the way, gear pattern sort of the same way. You look at it, it's got to be a certain way. That's it.
You literally paint a picture on the two gears.
Yep. Yeah, you're just taking it's Prussian blue is what I use, and you're painting it on the ring gear. You got to put some load on the ring gear. You roll it through both on the coast and the acceleration side of the gear, and you're reading where the location is on that pattern.
Okay.
Or where the pattern is, via on the tooth of the ring gear.
And by that pattern, you can tell where you need to go with your gears, whether
Correct.
You need to increase backlash or you need to increase preload, this, that, the other thing.
Yep. So pinion depth refers to, how far in that pinion is in relation to the ring gear. Backlash actually is, how far away the ring gear is from the pinion gear. And backlash is really important because it allows fluid up between the gears. Which allows them to cool. Too far in, you can't get enough lubricant in there. You'll have a failure. Too far out, there's not enough strength in the gear.
Okay.
And you have failure.
Right.
So there's, and it's the manufacturer's specified. Billy, you remember what yours was? Like 6 to 10 thousandths, I think, when you did yours.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So a Dana 44 and a Dana 30, they both have the same specifications, which was, I think it might be 5 to 10 or 6 to 10.
Something around there. I don't remember off the top of my head. You'd think by now, for as many as I've done of these, I mean, we're talking hundreds, if not thousands over the years.
Right.
But I think that's the number.
And we're talking thousandths of an inch. That's like human hair
well,
thickness.
that's exactly it. I was going to say that's the thickness of a human hair, with the exception of the ones that seem to be growing on my face the older I get.
Right.
Thicker and thicker.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so these gears, I mean, they multiply the torque, and that's what we are always changing out, to gain more torque, change where our torque curve is in relationship to the speed of the vehicle. And some of the various Jeep gear ratios over the past couple of years, the XJ guys and the Grand Cherokees, 307, 355s were common for them.
And let's talk about that ratio. That's the number of times that one thing spins that causes the other thing to spin once.
So let's jump into another note I have on here.
Yeah.
And this will explain what you're asking. So a lot of you probably are wondering, well, what did my Jeep come with? And there's really there's two easy ways to find out. If you bought that Jeep new and you had the window sticker, it may have, I think it has the ratio on there. But two, if you do not, if you bought it used, you can use a jack and some jack stands, jack it up, set the frame on some jack stands, put it in neutral, mark your dry shaft with like a tire crayon, mark your tire, turn your dry shaft, and count how many rotations your dry shaft makes to every one rotation of the tire. So if you turn it and it ends up 3 1/4 turns on the dry shaft to every one rotation of the tire, your gears are 321. That dry shaft is rotated 3 1/4 times to every time the tire is rotated.
Right.
So to answer your question, that's it's how many times that pinion gear dry shaft turns to every one rotation of your tire.
Perfect.
JK, since most of us are JK owners, the JK, the Sport came standard. Sport Sahara came standard with 321 gears.
Right.
It's unless you special ordered it with a tow package, then it came with 373 gears.
Right, which that's what I had in mind. That's the only reason I know that.
Right. So you could order them. The regular Wrangler came with 321s, and it was able to tow 2,000 pounds. And then I think it has a little bit larger capacity radiator. And I think they changed, like, believe it or not, there's about 560 different shock numbers for the JKs over the years.
Right.
It had a different shock package, and you got the 373 gears. And that was your tow package. And you could tow 3,500 pounds. Now the Rubicons came depending on, if it was automatic or manual, and there were some gear splits there with 373 or 410 gears. The new JLs, 345 is the standard, and there's still a 373 option in their Sport, Sahara, and then the Rubicon, I think, Billy, I should have looked this up tonight. I know there's a 410, but I can't remember 410 is the standard gear, I think, for the new Rubicon.
For Rubicon, 410s are the standard gear. And that's just based upon their transmission setup, and they also have a 4-to-1 transfer case.
Right. Which so that's going to come into play when we talk about some of the pros and cons of re-gearing. Is we'll talk about that transfer case a little bit. But yeah, those are just some of the more common ratios that we've used over the years. So here you go. This is the big question. What's the right gear for me? What do I use?
Right.
So I would say the most common tire size after lifting a Jeep is probably a 35-inch tall tire. And 90% of the people out there are running 456 gears. And to be honest with you, that's a pretty good ratio. Now, Bill, you're running 37s and 488s, right?
Yeah. So, and I've debated. It took me forever to decide on what set of gears I wanted to go to. And I knew the tire size I was going to. So I went to a 37-inch tire.
Right.
And I could have went with 456s, or I could have went with 488s.
Right.
And you can speak to this too, is as you start going up in the numbers, your RPMs out on the highway are going to be higher when you're cruising at that highway speed. Yep. But also at the same time, when you're driving around town, that low end speed, you're cruising at a more efficient rotations of your drive shaft to the tire size, so you're not putting as much strain on your transmission and your engine when you're kind of cruising around at that low end.
So in layman's terms, a 321 gear is great in the highway, not a ton of torque, but great in the highway. You're gonna, it's probably optimized for fuel mileage. In fact, not probably, that's what they use that gear ratio for.
Right.
But you do lose that low end torque. So the higher numerically that value goes, now the tire size plays into that because that's your final drive ratio. But the higher that number goes, the quicker that Jeep's going to accelerate from a dead stop, the more torque you have. But, you're sacrificing other things. And like I said, we'll kind of talk a little bit about that and the pros and cons. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Billy. In layman's terms, the numerically higher that gear is, the more torque it's going to have, the better it's going to pull out from a stop. The lower that number is, the better the fuel efficiency, and all that good stuff.
Right.
Bottom line is, and here's I thought about this and when I'm teaching this class, I have a lot of time to be able to explain and we can actually do some math in class to figure out, what optimum gear ratios are. But I'll tell you what, Quadratech has a list of charts on their website I believe it's under their knowledge center, which is under Jeep Life or something like that. You
can just search it. You can go to the search field and search gear ratios.
Yeah, but use Quadratech has, and they're the same charts are floating around a couple different websites, but there's some great charts there that tell you, how fast what's your RPM going to be at 60 miles an hour. And it kind of gives you, it's a color coded chart. So it kind of gives you what gear would be good for gas mileage for the size tire you have, what gear ratio would be, a good in between, and what gear ratio is going to give you the most torque, the worst fuel economy.
Don, I have one of those charts, and I'll post it up to our Instagram page so everybody
that would be awesome. Those charts really are. I mean, for just an easy reference guide, they're a home run. They're great.
The colors. I'm good with the colors.
Yeah,
that's about as much as I can understand as colors. So
green
is good.
Green, red, and yellow.
Green is good. Yellow and then red.
So common gear ratios for regearing, 456s is probably the most common. 488s is a big one. 513s and 538s, in stock JK axles are about, and I'm talking Dana 44s, not 30s, are probably about as high numerically as you're going to get. Now, here's the limiting factor is actually the size of the pinion gear. So the higher numerically the ratio gets, the less teeth the pinion gear gets on it, the weaker it gets, the smaller pinion actually gets. So Dana 30, that's its limiting factor. It has a very small pinion gear in it. I think there's a company out there, I think G2 or maybe it's, I don't know who it is, makes a 513 for the gear, 513 gear set for the Dana 30. I think I heard one to that somewhere.
Yes, they do. You're literally putting a grenade under your front.
You really are. And I'll be forward with everybody after we're done on my feelings of all this and and how I feel about what gears to run and what makes sense and what limitations are. But yeah, that's kind of those are kind of the axle, those are the common gears.
Yeah.
Pros of being regeared. There's more torque at lower speeds. They just, and I've regeared every one of my Jeeps, starting with my TJ. That was regeared. The black one was regeared, and sooner or later, this one that I have now will be regeared. It has 321s in it. It's a sport.
Yeah.
It makes the Jeep more drivable. So everybody notices right away, like the first thing you notice when you put bigger tires on is how sluggish the Jeep gets. It just gets unresponsive. You floor it and it's just
putt, putt, putt.
Yeah,
putt,
yeah,
putt.
pretty much. You're going up a hill, and if you're in a manual, you're like, well, and if it's a good hill, like if you're heading up to Billy's house, you're like, yeah, 6 to second,
So it's funny you say that. My puddles.
Yes.
It's a 98 Jeep Cherokee 4.0.
Yes.
And it has a manual transmission in it.
Yes.
And I am currently running 35s with 410s.
Yes.
Out on the highway, let me tell you, any hill I hit, I basically drive the highway in 4th gear.
Right.
Overdrive is gone.
Right.
Just because of the gearing that I have.
Right.
I mean, it's very manageable off-road just because it's not super torquey, and I'm not worried about blowing anything up.
Right.
Except U-joints, which I do that all the time anyway. So it doesn't even matter.
Billy comes, U-joints go running.
They do.
It literally.
But yeah, it's that's you don't have to deal with that anymore. And that was one of the things, like when I re-geared my black one, I like driving manual, but after you drive it every day back and forth to work, you're like, I'm so tired of shifting. I think it was great. I would get out in 73, and after I'd pull out, I usually pulled out in 2nd gear if it was a little bit of a rolling stop, and 3rd, 4th gear, and then I would throw it in 5th, and it would just idle along in 5th gear at 50 miles an hour in 73. And I didn't have to downshift. I didn't have to, I wasn't upshifting a lot. I was just cruising along, and that's nice. So the drivability improves tons with it.
Okay.
More so, you notice it more so in a manual, believe it or not, than you do in an automatic, because automatics, you have that torque converter, it's fluid coupling, it's torque multiplier. You don't notice it as much, but you'll notice your automatic transmission shifting less with being re-geared. Believe it or not, depending on how you re-gear, you're probably gonna notice probably not gonna notice much fuel loss, if any at all, because what people don't realize is that when you're on 35s or 37s with 321 gears, you got your foot in it to keep that thing moving. You re-gear, you don't have to have your foot in it as much, unless you're Billy. You have your foot in it.
Your foot in no matter what.
Yeah. I keep my foot in my mouth.
So we'll get into how I feel, and I'll tell you about what my thoughts are, which will relay into fuel mileage. The cons, believe it or not, you're multiplying torque. So, and we'll go back to that Rubicon thing. Now, the problem is you're multiplying torque. You're going to break things.
Right.
The Rubicon D44 rear axle has a different spline count in the axle shaft than a regular Sport does. And that's because of that 4-low. Even though you can get a 373 gear ratio in a Sport, you don't have that 4-to-1 transfer case 4-low. We have a 276-to-1 in a regular Sport or whatever. That 4-to-1, because of that, they up the spline count. So there's more stress on the drivetrain on things when when you're bumping the gears up.
Sure.
If you go way to one end, let's say you're running 35s and you go 48s or 513s, you're definitely going to be running that engine harder. So it's got to turn more revolutions to hit 60 miles an hour. So you're going to, there's worse fuel mileage, and it's debatable that there's more wear and tear in the engine, because that engine's there's more revolutions per mile
to get the same result. Right.
So instead of doing 2,000 RPMs in 1 mile, you're doing 3,000 to do 60 miles an hour.
So if you're now, this is the layman in me just thinking, if you're doing basically highway miles, you don't want to do
crazy gears,
that 5-to-1.
No,
right?
No, absolutely not.
But if you're out hitting rocks, and
then you're trailering that Jeep to the off-road park, and you're beating it up on rocks, and then go for those higher numerical.
Right. Otherwise, find a happy medium.
Yes, and that's probably what I'm going to get into in a minute, is what my feelings are.
Right.
So the other downside is this is a costly modification to a vehicle. You're talking, anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 per axle, depending on the parts you use. I'm reusing existing bearings. I had a rear gear set. I do not have a front. From another job I did, I think, I acquired a gear set. I have a carrier. Actually, there's no carrier split for rear Danas, but I had a carrier that I could use that was limited slip, not as great as a locker in most cases, and we'll get into locker stuff later. But anyway, there's still some parts I needed. I had to install kits, enough stuff to install, but I still need front gears and a front carrier. I'm still going to spend $500 on parts, and
right.
My labor's free.
Right. That's the best part.
That's
right?
the best
part.
So what are my feelings? And Billy, you can chime in then if you want, and
okay,
absolutely. What your feelings are,
and I think our feelings might be the same, might be a little slightly different, but we're both the type of guys that would do it ourselves, aka I've done it myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you've done it successfully. I mean, the rears sound good, they're working good. I mean, you beat the snot out of them on a regular basis, and they work great. My thoughts are, and this goes back to probably my brainwashing from Jeep, years of working for Jeep and the Jeep training.
Right.
When these vehicles are designed, they're designed for a certain amount of use. They in other words, a Rubicon with 410 gears and that 4-to-1 transfer case, that vehicle is torque rated. Like that transmission's torque rated. Those axles are torque rated. Everything's torque rated for that amount. You should be able to abuse the snot out of them, and it'll last.
Right.
So when I re-gear, I usually, all my Jeeps have been between it's been a 373 or 410. Now, again, I'm not a big tire guy. I wouldn't work for Billy. He's got 37s.
Right.
He had 37s and the 373s weren't working. I may put a set of, 34 and a half, 315-inch tall tires on this one I have now. I don't know. A 373, a 410 would be, better, but the 373s will work for that. That's my thought.
Right.
That's what that gives me the best of both worlds. Yeah. I'm still getting 17, 18, 19 miles a gallon. Buzzing around.
What's that?
I know.
What are those numbers?
You haven't seen those for a while, have you, Billy?
I haven't seen that since I put 37s on.
Yeah. No.
And that's so in my younger days I was a lot more like Billy. Bigger is better, bigger is better. Sure. And I guess I've become more reserved as I've got more responsibilities now, house, kids, and all that stuff. Yep. But when I re-gear a vehicle, I really look at those charts. I know what I'll take a look at that Quadratec chart and I'll figure out what it was originally, what my RPMs were at 60 miles per hour originally, and I will try and get it back to, if I put 35s on, I'll use a gear that gets me close to that originally. And that's my thought process. I use, as far as gear companies, I really do like G2. They recently sold, their company was recently bought, but I still like their stuff. But even at that, I don't really use G2 or aftermarket. I use Dana stuff, Mopar stuff. I've been trying to track down. If anybody out there has a front set of 373s they want to sell, let me know. Because I've been trying to track down a set of Mopar, OE 373 gears.
Right.
And for a number of reasons, but basically they're manufactured for that vehicle. They just, match set. And so, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. What do you think, Billy?
So funny enough, I pulled up that chart real quick. So for a Jeep JK running about 31-inch tires, which is around stock, 31, 32-inch tires, with a 373 gear set, that's putting you right around 2,500 RPMs. And interestingly enough, if you get into your Jeep, you'll see that little bit of green spot in your
in the tachometer.
Yep.
Billy's
and that
never
green
sees
spot
that.
is actually no, I don't see that anymore. That's actually indicating your eco range of where you should be kind of cruising down the highway.
Right.
So now, since we're in Pennsylvania. PA upped all of our turnpikes to 70 miles an hour. I really don't see that green section anymore.
No.
So, I've, as Don and I've said, I've done the regear process. It's time consuming. It's not something you want to do if you're not mechanically inclined. And you really got to do your homework.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yep. You really do.
It probably took me about 6 months to decide on what set of gears I wanted to go with, and another 6 months to decide what size tires I wanted to go with.
So which comes first? You chicken or the egg?
I knew you were going to go there.
Right.
I knew it.
So I have a really kind of good lead in for that.
Yeah. Do you want gears first or do you want tires first?
Which comes first? So either I always kind of thought it was tire size came first, because tire size really limits you on your amount of ground clearance with a straight axle vehicle. And so if you have a Dana 44 or Dana 30, ground clearance is basically the amount of distance from the bottom of your differential housing to the ground. So when you're off-road, you're airing down, you're actually going to even lose some ground clearance, possibly up to an inch of ground clearance. So average amount of ground clearance for, I think, a 32-inch tire is around 10 inches or something around that.
That's exactly it. Yep.
So I have 37s. I have about 12 inches of ground clearance. It makes a huge difference when you're off-road. And or you can even speak to this when you went to 35s.
Right.
You noticed it.
Big time.
Automatically. So I would say tires are your main deciding factor on what gears you need to go to.
I think this goes back, and we talked about this in episode 1. You got to really think about what you're going to use your Jeep for. And most of us, and myself included, I would love to sit here and say I'm that big bad rock crawler.
Yeah.
Out on the trail
I'm
this
the time.
way of life guy.
Yeah.
I'm hitting all the trails. The reality of it is I'm paying a monthly payment on this Jeep.
Yeah.
I still, I got a commuter to run back and forth, but I still need this thing to run around in.
Right.
Honestly, even in the days when I wheeled the most, my younger days before we had, when it was just my daughter and then even my son, we went out once a month, twice a month wheeling. Right. And I'm not talking driving on a dirt road wheeling. I'm talking wheeling. But does that really warrant the cost of me building an all-out rock crawler? Am I going to sacrifice that money that I could use on something else?
Right.
So that you really need to think about what you want to use this Jeep for, and that becomes important.
Right.
So
we've discussed this before. I'm running 35s, mud terrains.
Right.
And I think I may have, next time I buy a new set of tires, I might drop down to a 34 or 33 and go all terrain.
Yes.
I've had that mud terrain life, if you will.
Yeah.
I love my tires, but like you say, the majority of the time You're on the road.
Yeah,
and it's nice to get off the road. I cherish that moment.
Yeah,
I cherish those moments.
Absolutely, but life gets in the way, and we can't do that. It's finances, it's responsibilities.
Right.
So, I'm not going to sit here and lie to all our viewers and tell everybody that I'm this big, huge rock crawling guy.
Right.
I don't have, and 99% of us are in the same boat.
So I guess the question is, does it become a law of averages?
Right.
And when you're choosing gears and tires, there are some people out there like Bill and others that go to 40-inch tires or 37s.
And the reality of it is, right now, Billy is probably doing more off-roading than any of us. You know what I mean? So it makes sense for Billy to, he's wheeling the snot.
Right. So then you definitely want to go upper in that number range, right? But then there are those of us that live in that 33 to 35 range for tires, contemplating all-terrains,
Yep.
or going from all-terrains to MTs,
Right.
but maybe we don't wheel
Right.
once a
No.
month, or we go to a campsite that we drive
Right.
10 miles on a gravel road
Right.
to get to.
Right.
Do we then go to those upper numbers, or do we go somewhere in the middle,
Right.
somewhere in that 3.7 range or that 4.10 range?
That's really what I'm about, because to be honest with you, that's what most of us. I mean, Billy, you're lucky right now. You know, Billy's got some time, and he does some great wheeling, and he's a great wheelman.
So I want to just throw this out there too. I have 2 Jeeps.
Yeah,
sure.
I don't wheel my. Yes, I've taken it off road. I've done that, but I don't push my red Jeep, Big Red, to those limits that I push Puddles.
Right.
Puddles has sat at AOAA overnight. Because,
right.
And here's my next thing. I don't even consider myself one of those super rock crawling guys, because I don't tow my vehicle there. I still have to drive mine home.
Right.
I need that sticker. Remember, stupid. You need to drive
you got to drive this home.
Right. Well, but there are those people like you, Bill, that do have those extreme Jeeps,
and you have the resources for it, Billy.
Right. Absolutely.
So you have the resources for, it makes sense. And I think I'm just throwing this out there for the people, because I know there's been times where I sit at home and I'm like, man, here I am, this Jeep guru, and I've got a Jeep in the garage with 33s. What's wrong? I need to go weld up a full cage, and, but the reality of it is, no, people shouldn't feel like that. You're not going to use that vehicle. If you're not going to use that vehicle to that capacity, put your money somewhere else, like an extra gas or, some other stuff.
Well, I think it becomes, and this is the whole Jeep life, right? Is figuring out what your Jeep is for you.
That's it.
Right.
Yes.
And there are some people out there that daily drive 40-inch tires. They've got high gears, but they will take it out on and, beat the snot out of 40 rocks.
Right.
Just whatever they can do, and yay, go for it. Because I want to hear that story back in the parking lot.
We all can't be average. That's not fun.
Right. I'm not. I'm going to do the greens and blues, and and beat the snot out of those little saplings. That's where I'm at.
So going back to this. I think you're right. It's the law of average. You really need to think about what you're going to use that Jeep for, and build it accordingly. That's why there's a slew of parts, because everybody has different needs.
Right. And I don't, we talk about this adage all the time that your Jeep's really never done. And when it is done, a lot of people sell it.
Yeah.
Right. And then,
sure enough, that was part of the deal with the black one. I'm
like,
well, it's a great overlanding rig. I'm kind of done now.
Right. But my Jeep's definitely not done.
No.
I want more to do with it, but it's kind of figuring out what I want to do with that. I think when
we've had those conversations.
Right, when I went to the 35s, I was definitely thinking, I definitely want to hit those harder trails, and spending a lot of time out west, and now back here in Tennessee, I love doing the medium trails where I don't have to super stress about if I hit that tree.
Right.
I'm okay not having to worry about that right now in my life. So maybe, my choices are going to be different than somebody else's, and that's okay.
That's exactly what I'm getting at.
I think that's
what I think is not important. I mean, it is in my mind, but but everybody is entitled to, they're what are you going to use your Jeep for? What do you want to do with it? And that's, just understand that with modifications comes,
big receipts.
It's true. Comes trade-offs. You have to understand that, if you're gonna put, like, we'll just talk about Billy did his right. Few people do, but Billy did 488 gears and a Dana 30, which is tough on that axle. But the first thing he did was he put chromoly shafts in it. Right. So it's a hardened shaft, and
I sleeved the tubes.
Right.
like there was a lot that I did. And then also when I was doing all this, I knew in my mind that I completely crossed off off-roading with this Jeep.
Yeah.
I can't wheel it like I used to wheel it.
Right.
And let me tell you one thing. I was talking to one of my family members about this. I beat the living crap out of my Big Red when I got it.
Yep.
And I am absolutely paying for it now. So, as you said, law of average. What are you going to do with it?
Yep.
I went out and bought a kind of beater Jeep to go out in the woods that I like fixing, that I like just kind of, it's a project. It's on 35s and it's eventually going to go to 37s. It's eventually going to just build up. I have a Dana 60 sitting in the garage. So it's all what you want to do. Yeah. So, I don't know.
I don't, and I think this is great. What we've talked about is a lot of knowledge on what is there, what's available. But we're not advocating going out and spending $2,000 or $3,000 on regearing your machine if you're not going to use it in that way.
Should you to make decisions is what we're trying to do.
Right.
Make a decision that's right for you.
Make those decisions. Make those decisions the right way. Use the resources that are available to you. Know what you're going to do with it. I drive mine on the highway a lot. I've got a ton of highway miles.
Right.
I do have some trail miles, but my trail miles is a fraction, a very small
people
fraction.
Need to think about it. Actually think about next time you go out wheeling, reset your trip odometer on
the
trail.
Right.
Everybody thinks they do 1,000 miles a day on a trail. And if you reset it and you get off and you do 20 miles, it's a pretty good day. 30 miles is a pretty good day.
20 miles is a long.
That's 10 hours of trail time.
Yes. So, when you think about that times the 4 times you go out a year, that's 80 miles versus the 20,000 miles you put on a vehicle a year.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thought that you got to put into it. What are my resources? How much money do I have? Can I do without driving this all? Can I afford to drive it? If it's got 40s and 513 gears in it, and weigh all that out. I cannot.
Yeah.
I'm a school teacher, so that's not going to happen.
Well, you guys are awesome. And go ahead, Bill.
Don, it's interesting that you say that. Just reset your trip odometer. I went to one of the night rides up at AOAA.
Yes.
And their trail or route that they planned out was on average about 10 to, I think he said it was like 10 to 13 miles. I don't remember the exact miles, but he said you just did a day of wheeling in a matter of 45 minutes that it took us to go around.
Right.
Yeah. And I was sitting with my buddy and our minds were blown that we just did that amount in a matter of 45 minutes. He was like, you're going to go do like 3 days of wheeling in a matter of a night.
Right. Well,
and that was at night.
Yeah.
Like
probably not as many obstacles as you would do, but overall, when you're off-roading, you're not putting in a lot of mileage, right?
No, you're really not.
And and I think you need to consider that when you're doing it. So I thank both of you for coming with your expertise. I feel better about knowing what I'm going to do gear-wise, and we'll put those resources out there for you as well. I'll try to, when I do the show notes, maybe I'll link to the Quadratech page as well.
Yeah, Billy, you said you could throw the stuff up.
Yeah, I got that
Instagram.
Chart. Yeah, and everybody that's listening, please, if you have any questions, reach out to us, and I would be more than I'm sitting at home on my computer all day for work. If you want to send me a Jeep question, I will be more than happy to help you out with that question.
And you would send that question to info@jeeplifepodcast.com. And I will make sure Bill gets it so he can reach out to you, which really takes us to our next thing. Where can we be found?
Instapicture, right?
Instapicture. The Snap Talks.
Snap Talks, yeah.
So I put out a challenge last week it's a call to action, really. Go write us a review. Let us know how you feel. We got 3 reviews this week, and I'm going to actually read them off to us because they were pretty awesome. Jessabo8427 put down, informative. I haven't bought my first Jeep yet, but I'm all in on one of the Gladiators by the end of the year. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
My only
I've
complaint.
actually been looking at the Gladiators. I hate to say it.
I think they're
You're
awesome.
not trading everything in, are you, Billy?
I think they're
No,
awesome.
no. I've
been listening to and reading everything I can. Anyway, I ran across this podcast, listened to all of them in one day. Thanks a lot for that. Very informative and look forward to many more episodes. Looking forward to my first Jeep Wave. Let me go ahead and give that to you right now. Let's do that right
there.
Right there. There you go. Awesome. Crazy Weber, fun for the ears, great content and always fun. Been watching since the first episode and look forward to T-Bone posting more. And I believe Crazy Weber is watching right now on Facebook Lives. Man, that's pretty awesome.
Woo!
And I've Gone Country, fun and knowledgeable. This is a great podcast. Fun and knowledgeable discussions about Jeeps. If you have a passion for your Jeep, this is the place for you. And, that's kind of what it's been about. If I were to
get-go,
let's write a mission statement. I'm going to have I've Gone Country write a mission statement. That's it. Exactly.
I agree.
Right?
Absolutely.
If you have a passion for Jeeps, this is the place for you. We will always be about your passion for Jeeps because it's our passion for Jeeps.
Yep.
Right? I think we can all agree with that. So please go out, write some reviews. Even if you hate us, I don't care. Write a bad review.
Well,
no, don't do that. Don't do that.
We don't want it.
Don't do that.
No,
Lie to us. Lie to us, please.
So, Terry, I want to hear some, constructive criticism, not bad review, constructive
All right,
criticism.
there we go.
What do you want to hear? What do you want our next topics to be? I have an automotive background. Don has an automotive background. Terry has a tech background. If you want to know something about, stereo systems, I think Terry might be able to help you out with that.
We've got a that'll be a nice. We've got that as a topic already in the hopper. But yeah, if you want to know more about or give us a show topic, info@jeeplifepodcast.com is the place to send that in. Our Facebook page, if you're watching us Facebook Live, you already know that, but it's Jeep Life Podcast. We try to keep it simple. We have a YouTube page where we do some videos, instructive how-to videos. Frank, our master driveway mechanic, has some of those. I've got some on there. I know Don's working on some content for that.
I think I'll
get that done right away.
Bill's working on some content. We talked video this week. So check us out there, subscribe there, because our new content will be there. And our Instagrams, we just crossed 600 followers this week, which is outrageous.
That's awesome.
In the amount of time we've been out there. And the Instagram on that is @JeepLifePod. I'm done. I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, do you guys have anything else?
It's really hot in here in the studio.
It's really. I'm gonna crank up the heat even further. I'm gonna
chasing me out the door.
It's a weight loss program going on. You guys got anything else for tonight?
I'm thank you for everybody that's watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks everybody, and
yeah.
Good night.
Well, thanks for listening, and you've been listening to the Jeep Life Podcast. We'll see you out on the trails. Take care.